Okay, so if Native Construct and Between the Buried and Me got together one night, had a one night stand, and produced a love child, In Static by Edge of Reality. So Edge of Reality is a US progressive metal band. This is their third album, and actually the first one that I've heard. A couple of my viewers had actually suggested this album, saying that it is fantastic, and yeah, it kind of is. The one thing that I want to get right out of the way before I dive into the review is some of the grievances that I have with this album. And the main one is that it's way too long. Even though I enjoy my time throughout it, I just find myself wandering away from it near the midpoint. So I think if they had put this out as a double album or as a part 1 and 2, it would probably make for a much easier listen from start to finish. But I don't think that was really their intent. I don't think they intended to make an easy listening. In fact, they almost go out of their way to make sure that this album is as challenging as possible, in the best sense. So let's actually talk about some of the things that I particularly love about this album. When this album hits hard, it hits hard. I particularly love some of the really heavier parts. The album opens up with a very, very well done song at almost 9 minutes of The Attack of the Great Worm. Where this song goes beats the hell out of me. Holy jeez. I love the quirky aspects. I love the interplay and the harmonizations of all the different instruments that are going on here. I love the rhythm section. I love the time signature changes. I love how it never gets comfortable and it's always switching from one thing to another in a very well done way. And how they are able to handle those transitions are particularly well crafted. Like, these guys know what they're doing at this stage of the game. Some of the guitar works on here, it leaves me with scratching my head, being like, how did they come up with that? It was particularly enjoyable in that sense. From there, I mean, it's the 9 minutes alone, it just made me want to melt. We come into A Consultation and The Puzzle Man, and these two tracks blend seamlessly between one another, and I feel like this is almost like a 10-minute suite at times. I particularly like on A Consultation, near the midpoint, like well, not the midpoint, maybe the first quarter, we have this really aggressive singing style that is utilized very, very well to grab your attention, that then just gets punched in the face with such a somber moment. Like, we go from this really heavy-hitting moment to like this vast array of air, and it's so stark. Most of the time it's flipped, but I like the fact that it's presented in this sense. And this ability to create such chaotic moments that lead to a very grand build and perfect plateau is something that a lot of bands have tried and few have really been able to master, but I feel like Edge of Reality is really good at constructing a lot of these. And this is particularly felt within Puzzle Man. Again, it's chaotic right from the beginning, and you're just like hit in the face, and it's unrelenting, and when it finally does, it's like a breath of fresh air, but you're still kind of longing for that relentlessness. And I also love just the fun atmosphere that we have within this. Like, even though a lot of this is very intense and is very heavy, it's played a lot in the major chord, a la Between the Buried and Me. So in that sense, I really like this new take that we have. It's not dark, it's just heavy. And the next track of Bed of Lies is just insane in kind of the best way. There's a lot of things that are being thrown at you. There's a lot of chaos that is going on. Like, this is the poster child of what I was saying between Native Construct and Between the Buried and Me. And then from there, we actually go into Love Struck. And I kind of like how this is framed in that it's kind of this bluesy jazz bar, and this lonely guy is coming up here, and he's just like, this song is called Love Struck, and it's for all the lovebirds out there, and it's just dark and gritty, and it feels like something that I would have heard off of the darker moments of, say, the Deer Hunter axe sequences. And then we come into The Notebook, which is a perfect little interlude, and honestly, this is probably where I start to tap out at the album. I like the fact that that Notebook is a very clear midpoint for the album. It allows me just to kind of take a breath, because at that point, after everything that we've been through within the first 5 tracks, I'm like, okay, I think I'm kind of done. Like, I think I've had my fill. But it does continue with Azera, New Fuel, Remorse Code, Child of Darkness, and Illegal Code. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of these tracks don't really add anything that hasn't already been provided. The songs are still great, and I'm still enjoying the times that I have in here, but at this point, my brain does start to tap out a little bit, which is a little bit of a shame, because Erzera, I think I'm going to say that's Erzera, the song that directly follows Notebook, is probably my favorite track off of the album. I love how this song builds, because it really takes its time. It's the antithesis of a lot of the tracks that came before it. It's not crazy, it's not insane, it's not like all over the place. It's very heartfelt, it's very somber, it's very emotive, and I love the build of this track. I love how it really blossoms into its own. I just wish that my mind were more ready to listen to it. And New Fuel is the longest track, and I think this one, if I had to cut something, this one would probably be one of the first ones to go. It is the longest track at 10.5 minutes, and I just don't feel like the track length is real justified. The big ending finale kind of leaves me wanting more, even though I do appreciate the drum work that's on it. I like kind of the cymbals and I think it's like a drum machine that's being overlaid on there. I enjoy that, but it's not enough for me to really gush about. And it's also really oddly placed at being the 4th last track off the album. And of course, this is followed up with Remorse Code, and it's very similar to like Morse Code, because it's purely instrumental. It's the shortest track, and it's just balls to the wall insanity. By this point, especially after New Fuel, I feel like I'm out of fuel to really get me into it, which then leads us to the last 2 tracks, Child of Darkness and Illegal Chord. And again, I'm already kind of out of steam by this point, which is a shame, because Child of Darkness I actually really do enjoy if I'm listening to it on its own. I really enjoy the female vocalist, the woman singer of Megan Rasmussen. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. Megan's vocal work on here is pristine, and I also love how intimate this track is. Reminds me again of Notebook, a little bit of Love Struck, definitely of Azera. It brings some new life a little bit within this end part of the album. Which brings us to the last track of Illegal Chord, and it is kind of a summarization of all that has come before. So it's blending a lot of the different styles that we've been presented with. It adds a lot of those kind of ebb and flows, and it's fine. I don't know. By the time it ends, I've already kind of checked out, a number of tracks behind, so... which is a real shame. Like, this is a classic example of an album where the parts are greater than the sum. Like, if I were to listen to a lot of these tracks on their own, I would have really, really liked it. But because there's just so much going on, and it's harder to kind of keep track of all of them, I feel like my listening enjoyment kind of is lessened by that. So... yeah. In the end, I still really, really enjoyed this album, and it is one that I highly, highly recommend. It's if you're up for it, you're going to be up for it, and you're going to really enjoy it. But for me, this one comes down to a download. This is one that I would download, I would have onto my computer, I would listen to those individual songs. If I were in the mood, I would listen from start to finish, but that's only if like the mood really, really struck me just right. That's about it for In Static by Edge of Reality. What did you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, let me know of your own thoughts by commenting down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.